With the breaking news, the Kremlin has announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone call with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The conversation focused on ongoing efforts to de-escalate tensions in the region. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has emphasized Putin's commitment to continue his diplomatic work aimed at reducing regional conflicts. Now we stay on this topic. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a phone conversation on Friday discussing the escalating situation in the Middle East and Iran. The Kremlin stated that Putin offered Russia's support in mediating the ongoing crisis, with Iran underlining the need for stronger political and diplomatic efforts to ensure stability in the region. This offer comes as protests continue in Iran, further fueling tensions between the Islamic Republic and Western nations. Meanwhile, the Iranian mission in India has strongly condemned the United States for using the United Nations as a platform to make unfounded allegations regarding Iran's handling of ongoing protests. Iran's deputy UN envoy Darzi accused the U.S. of turning the UN into theater to spread baseless claims. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Vasilin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what's your analysis on, also the breaking news that we just took that Putin and Iranian President Pezeshkian held a phone call, and also Putin and Israeli Prime Minister calling for this. How ironic is that? Because Putin is, of course, Russia is at war right now.
Well, Vladimir Putin tries to kind of have some diplomacy and some image as someone important, but he is no longer important. These are useless phone calls because they wouldn't solve anything. Russia cannot help anybody. They couldn't help Maduro in Venezuela, and they cannot help Iranians as well. Russian army is half destroyed in Ukraine, and they have no economic power, they have no other power, no political power. These are just phone calls, they mean nothing. Well, traditionally Iran is a Russian ally. They can probably help the Ayatollah to get a refuge in Moscow, exactly like al-Bashir from Syria got a refuge when he was ousted from power in Syria. All Russia can do is help the Ayatollah to survive with a helicopter ride somewhere. But that's all that Russia can do here. And yes, the situation in Iran kind of ironically reminds the situation in Russia. After a long period of mismanagement, economic and political, the Iranians, the people of Iran, protested because their life became miserable. They used to be a very normal and prosperous people, very educated back in the 1970s before the regime took over. And now their lives turn miserable. They protest against their economic position. They are not protesting for some American intervention. They are basically worried about their lives, their families, and so many of them, more than several thousands already, are killed by this murderous regime. And yes, Vladimir Putin, another murderous regime who treats the people of Russia exactly like the Ayatollah in Iran treat the Iranian people, can have a phone call how to survive. So I guess the phone call between Russia and Iran is about how to survive in power. And that's what dictators do. Well, the phone call with Israel probably is kind of to make a little bit of balance here, because Israel and Iran are two enemies, historic enemies for a long time. And that explains why Putin tries to talk to both sides here and somehow to make himself important. But obviously, for me, that's not a news. These are courtesy calls without any meaning. They will not have any implications, in my opinion.
Right. And when you say that what was discussed was how to survive between these calls, right? So how do you think, how will they do so? Because of course they're putting it a lot of money on their forces, right? Iran is putting a lot of money on they're fighting the protesters, and then Russia is of course pouring it all the money on their war with Ukraine.
Well, kind of, again, irony is that both Russia and Iran are rich in resources. They export a lot of oil and gas and other resources, and that's how those dictators try to survive, by selling their natural mineral resources. Venezuela was the other example, another rich in resources country, but the change will happen in Venezuela. Hopefully it will happen also in Iran and in Russia, because those leaders utilize, and Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, they're all the same. They utilize the resources of the country to establish tyrannic, endless regimes. But sooner or later, they all end in the same way. So Putin and the Ayatollah Khamenei have to choose one of the way to finish. They want to finish like Saddam Hussein, possible. They want to finish like Muammar Gaddafi, possible. They want to finish like Maduro, possible. Let them choose one of the three ways to finish, and let them finish. There is no escape from this, in my opinion. No matter how many you may have, the end is one. There is one direction. Choose between Saddam, Gaddafi, and Maduro, and that's the choice for Putin and the Ayatollah of Iran today.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Popovsky, for sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next news.